Yeah, I'm Conor Jordan. I am a character artist at Bitreactor. I've been in the games industry for 5 years now. I started off working at a company called Romero Games in Galway, in Ireland. It was founded by the titans of the industry, John and Brenda Romero. So it was kind of a weird, weird way to start into the industry, kind of going into something like that with those guys. But now, yeah, I'm over at Bitreactor working on a Star Wars game. So that's just a bit about me. Here's my portfolio if you, in case you want to have a look or anything like that, see if I'm legit. But anyway, I'll get into the meat and bones of things, and you guys can just throw in any questions that you got in the chat, and I'll try to get through as much as I can at the end. So I guess we'll just jump right in uh, with this character. So this is a character that I started last December doing the course, the CGMA course for cloth creation, which was made by the very wonderful and talented Jason Fitch, who worked on Spider-Man. And yeah, this was just kind of the product of it. So I'm going to try break this down and show you the decisions I made and why I made them, and some tips and techniques and stuff that will really help you when you're making your own characters. Um, this looks like a lot right here, what's going on, but trust me, like it's kind of like a step by step, like all of this kind of stuff. It starts off with just pants and a shirt, and from there it kind of just expands and evolves and turns into something that hopefully matches whatever concept that you're trying to get. Um, so I guess the best way or the best advice I can kind of give, because like when I started out with Marvelous Designer, especially, it's very daunting because you're trying to make clothes and trying to basically be a seamstress or seamster or whatever it's called, and make all these garments and try to figure it all out, and what the hell is weft and warp, and what the hell is like all these like patterns and stuff that you got to figure out. But one of the things that I've learned very quickly, or not very quickly, it was actually quite recently, was the weft and the warp. They are your best friends when you're making cloth. You can look up patterns and stuff, and you can try trace over them, and you can try like what I at least what I thought was that you trace over the pattern, you slap it on, and you simulate it, and it'll look exactly like you hope it does in the reference. But that's not always the case, and anyone that starts in Marvelous Designer knows that as well. Um, this is it's a very tough program to learn, but then once you actually know the weft and the warp, and how to manipulate the cloth in order to get the results you want through weft and warp, it becomes everything just makes a lot more sense. I have a pen tool here so that I can just draw on my screen, and it is somewhere. There it is. Aha. Yeah, so when I say left and warp, that literally, quite literally, means just like left and right, up and down. And the best way and the easiest way to remember that is wefty, lefty. Because when you're dealing with weft and warp, it's essentially just the weft is stretching the fabric out on the left and right, and the warp is stretching the fabric out on up and down. And the best way to think or visualize it is when you're in this section and you're making your garments, and uh, the rotation of your garment is what particularly matters, because if it is, say, at this angle, it's going to simulate, and it's going to go at a weird simulation as opposed to if it was down straight, because that affects the weft and the warp as well. So yeah, back to the weft and warp. Essentially, we're stretching it. Let me see here. Get color. Yeah, we're stretching it up and down here when we're thinking of the warp, and that's all going to be along here. So it starts at 100%, and as you increase that percentage, it's going to stretch the fabric out, and that's what gives you your folds. So and then once you start stretching out on the weft, that's going to do it the other way, and that stretches you out the fabric, but also keeping your seams in line so that you actually have, you're not actually just increasing the size of the fabric, you're actually just giving it more cloth essentially to give you those folds and those results. Um, and get rid of this. Uh, but that essentially was the biggest thing that I learned when developing these things. We'll get rid of this bloody thing. There we go. So let me just hide this so that you can kind of get a better idea of what's going on underneath. Um, and I'll show you just something. Let's give an example. So you can see here the weft and the warp is at 110% and 120%. So that's stretching it out to the left and right and to the down part. The warp is most of the time is what gives you those kind of folds, the ones that you kind of see here. Because if this was at 100%, all of this would just shrink in and it would be tight right onto the body. But when you actually start messing with these parameters, and you're going to spend 90% of your time in this area when you're in Marvelous, and this is exactly what is going to give you, like, not so much the whatever fabric you choose or anything like that. It's the weft and the warp that is what gives you the fold, not picking whether it's going to be cotton or whether it's going to be wool or whatever. And that's something that was a light bulb moment for me when I started working on this, because prior to doing this, I had not much of a clue still of how to do any of cloth or cloth creation for games. And once that kind of got explained to me, I was kind of just free then to mess around and play around with parameters and try to get results I wanted, like all these kind of folds inside of here and whatnot. Um, but yeah, so that's essentially the main lesson. If I can give anybody here a lesson when if they're ever struggling in Marvelous Designer, is to uh, not only, yes, you mess with a pattern and it starts out very basic and it kind of evolves into this kind of thing where you're cutting and putting seams in places to try to get a result that you want. But it's messing with those weft and warp parameters is what's really going to make your characters stand out and shine at the end. So I guess the best way, or the next thing, is after this process, say when you're happy enough with everything, say like you're ready to export all of these garments. There's a very particular technique that has helped me constantly and saved me so much time. And I'm actually convinced that it is voodoo, the way it works. But some of you might know it, some of you may not know it. It's a technique that's used by a lot of character artists that are working out of Marvelous Designer, especially. And it's essentially retopoing all of these garments, because if you're looking at all this and you're trying to like place the polygon inside all of these crevices and whatnot, and there's a lot going on here, bloody nightmare. Like it's absolute hell. Like even in this hood as well, it's ridiculous. So one technique that I got, and if you guys have Maya, especially, is what's going to uh, really help you with this next part. And here it is. It looks something like this. And I'm using the poncho part of this character as an example. So say you're happy with everything, you export out your garment, and this is it at its highest density, and it has its UVs laid out, which is a very important thing as well when you're exporting out, is that you have some UVs set up in here, and they're set up in the U and V first zero slot. So once that's exported out and you have it in something like Maya, you export out the dense part of it and you export out the flat version of the actual garment, which you see in the 2D window. And these two, with the UVs, is exactly what's going to give you your clean topology, and it's going to save you so much time and headaches and pain when you're doing this. So I guess the best way to show this is, instead of trying to retopo this by placing squares on top of the actual garment, we're placing them on the flat part here. And this is where all the magic happens. So you're just doing as you would, retopoing with quad draw or whatever you're using. And you're doing all of that work on top of these. Now, this is all done very basically. Like when I was first doing these, it was just very, very broad shapes. Just get rid of that. Like when I was starting off, you start off really big, and then once you're happy enough with whatever shape you're going to do or whatever topology you got at the end, you're just subdividing it on top of it, and that's what gives you then something like this. Trust me, I did not do every single one of these squares, but yeah, that also would have been hell. But back to the technique. So once you're happy and you have all of this retopoed, you can essentially use the UVs on both of these outfits. Since the UVs are the exact same in their exact same position, there's a very, very clever tool in Maya called transfer attributes. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to uh, pick a source. Yeah. So the way Maya works is you pick a source and you pick a target. So this would be this would be the source, and then you pick the target, which would be this one, your beautiful new retopioed flat version. And since the UVs here are exactly the same on both, we can take advantage of something like that and go into, what is it here, under mesh, transfer attributes, and we go into this little box here because this, if we try to do it now, we need to set up the parameters of this. So we have all of these settings here. I'm just going to reset it all so that you can see what it'll look like on the default. And we're going to do a little bit of magic here. And essentially, we pick vertex position is what we're going to transfer. So all of these vertices. And we can just turn these off because they don't really matter. We're not worried about UV sets or anything like that. And keep this off as well because we don't need to transfer the normal information. So we're only transferring the vertex, and we're going to use the UVs as a sample space since they match exactly to each other. And once we're happy with that, all we have to do is hit transfer. And like that, all of those vertices have now transferred and wrapped around this poncho. And look at that. Everything cleanly and uniformly wrapped around perfectly in all the crevices, everything for the model. And this also gives us the UVs as well, so that we have pretty clean, pretty standard UVs, but like you can work really well with them. So that also is a technique that, from working on Clot and Clot for games, that has saved me so many headaches and so much time and pain trying to retopo stuff and trying to UV stuff. And it is just absolute wizardry the way it works, but it works so cleanly, as you can see. And you can use this then, you can use, when you export out your Clot from Marvelous Designer and into ZBrush, you can use this now as a base for clean when you're doing the high poly and adding in all like the wrinkles and detail. Like for instance, when this is done, I'll show you the one I finished for later. This is just it subdivided a bunch, and then I brought this into ZBrush at its subdivided level, and yeah, I can just sculpt straight onto this. I can separate all these out into different subtools. I have full control essentially over this now, and it only took a couple of clicks and making sure that the UVs were matching on top of each other. And you might be wondering, like, oh, how are the UVs matching on top of each other? Because since this is exported out of Marvelous Designer, so is this, and this is all on, and so is this. They're going to use the exact same UVs, which is they're the exact same thing. Only one is simulated and one is flat, and that's how it knows what to do. So that was also another lesson I learned to help me kind of bring my character art and my workflows to the next level when working on this kind of stuff. So yeah, I hope everyone's with me and I'm not gonna go in tangents here or anything like that. Or if anyone's confused, please write them anything in the chat and I'll try to get through as much as I can to help you guys. And even if I don't get through everything, please feel free to message me for this and whatnot on Discord or whatever it is, and I'll try answer as much as I can with all my knowledge I can. So I guess like after this is just the poncho. So when you're doing this for each garment. And once you're happy and you have all this clean topology here, say, you're just going to bring all that stuff into ZBrush, and then that's when the fun begins, and you're actually starting to sculpt. And I'll have the finished version here. And this is after a bunch of work trying to add in all the tiny wrinkles and details, like from Marvelous Designer and from that export from Maya where it's all the clean topology. And if you look at this, it's you guys get this. That's all that clean topology that we got, and it's all separated out into its own subtools and polygroups, where you can just, as I said, have full control over everything. you can start see all these tiny creases and stuff. This is all basically what was added. Everything else is pretty much the same from Marvelous Designer, but it's just um, uh, obviously just detailed in with all these little tiny wrinkles and folds. Another lesson that I learned when you get to this stage now is taking advantage of layers in ZBrush. And that is something that like never I never took into consideration. I knew layers were there, and they're great, but like I didn't know how much you can take advantage of them for stuff like this and how to work non-destructively in ZBrush. And that's the important part: is it's non-destructive, and you can tweak and change any of these settings to whatever depth or how severe you want your folds or your details or anything like that. And it also kind of creates situations where you can kind of get your own Clot Alphas, whether you make them yourself in Marvelous Designer, which is a whole nother kettle of fish to get through, and maybe I'll do something else to talk on that as well. But or you find some Clot Alphas online, and you're just like trying to add some extra detail, say in whatever part of the body you want, and then you're just you can just add that in or take it away. So I guess like, I'll see if I have a couple examples here where, yeah, you can see there's a bunch of layers here and they're all doing different things. And I'm just going to turn off each one of these so you can see exactly what's going on. And some of these things are just like minuscule amounts of change, but like overall, they make a big difference to the final result. So this is essentially like what was out of Marvelous Designer, obviously with thickness and stuff added in. But yeah, most of all these folds are pretty much exactly what was exported out from there, and then just the clean topology added on top. And then from there, there's just I have a section here just called alphas, and that's just general like little tiny wrinkles here that's kind of placed all over. From there, we go into secondary folds, which are just these anywhere that's a seam along here. There's it's very kind of tricky to see, but it's very, very subtle, but it does add up. You can see it probably here more in the crotch. Um, but yeah, it's just those little tiny folds that you get from seam lines, which Marvelous doesn't give you unless you're absolutely want to destroy your computer. Then we have our Clot Alphas, which are just very subtle detail, but they're just kind of adding that bit of extra bit of noise on top of everything. And here I was just kind of trying to change up the cloth around here because it was looking a bit too flat around this area. Like it just felt like there needed to be something around this area. So I just kind of added that extra bit of very light cloth. But you can see here, it's tweaked down a bit. If you look at the actual, it's just, see if we can get that back up. Sorry, my computer will probably start chugging. But yeah, it's just something like that. And I thought that's probably a bit too harsh. So I just kind of brought it down a bit. Then we have memory folds, and this is like the most important part when you're detailing cloth in something like ZBrush is these types of folds that you get when the cloth is like drop down and folding over on top of itself, and the creases that you get from those cloth, like this, you think similar to like bed sheets or something like that. When you see them, it's just all those zigzags that you get from that, and they're just pretty much everywhere. At least everywhere that makes sense, because like the back of the knee is obviously bent a lot more. So I was kind of trying to put a bit more severity around here, and as opposed to like up around the butt and anywhere around the other parts. So I'm just trying to imagine like where it makes the most sense to place these types of folds if it was a real life character. Yeah, there's some edits there, which I'm not sure why that's there, but obviously there's a reason for it. Yeah, then it just adjustments. Yeah, that was around here. So I wanted these to be a lot more deeper. They were just looking a bit too flat for my liking, especially for something that's like seams and something that's sewn in. So I was trying to get more matched to the concept, and just kind of adding that bit of severity there. And there's got something here called knee folds. Oh yeah, yeah. There's another example of just using cloth alphas to give a bit more uh, to add on top of what's already existing. So there's a prime example of like this wasn't given to me in the simulation, but I was just felt like I need a bit more there. It doesn't feel right that there's just a flat cloth there and there's nothing folding on top of itself. Um, so that's kind of the way it works, and this is for every part of the garment. You know, if you look under here, we got everything else that's going on. You know, we have this vest and whatnot. Um, and there is a lot of other adjustments as well that like Marvelous Designer, it's never going to be 100%, and that's what you got to remember as well. It's going to simulate stuff, and when it simulates stuff, it's not really doing it at real world type of simulations. Like it's going to try its best, but there's going to be a lot of tweaking you're going to have to do in something like ZBrush, where you're just grabbing points and trying to adjust them. And I wonder if I do have the original from Marvelous Designer in here. I don't think I do. But yeah, I can just show you what adjustments I kind of made for something like this, because I remember this one particularly was not simulating the way I wanted to, because there's just so many seam lines going on that I just, I was like, fuck it, I'll throw it into ZBrush and adjust it there, as opposed to me trying to scratch my head and pull my hair out, trying to simulate in Marvelous Designer. And I think it was, oh yeah, this is just adding a bit more folds. Oh, actually, no, it wasn't even in here, but I can show you exactly where this is causing problems in Marvelous Designer. And it is here. Yeah. So like this, I was causing loads of problems. I was getting this pinching here, which was really severe and does not look like it would do that in real life whatsoever. And and that was probably just a product of all these different seams, but the concept had all these different kind of seams and stuff, and I was trying to get it as close as possible and simulate it. You can see here, these are just like elastic, which I've just kind of pulled up a little bit on the elasticity so that it kind of gives me these micro folds. But yeah, I think that's probably just a product of that, and I was just in my head, yeah, I can definitely fix that in ZBrush instead of me trying to make sure that's like real life. And that is exactly what I did. And you're going to be doing that all the time with all these different types of clothing. When you're bringing it into ZBrush, it's never 100% out of Marvelous Designer. You're going to be, either you want a bit more shape on it, where you pull out, like say, for instance, the hip, or if something's sticking out too far in the back, you want it to hug the body a lot closer and make more sense for the silhouette overall. And that's what you should be always trying to achieve, is trying to look at it like ZBrush obviously has this little handy feature, which is recent enough, where you can see the silhouette and you kind of see where the breakups are, and you always want to have breakup in your silhouette. You don't want everything to be that. This is a bit, obviously this is a bit when I look at it now, it's like there isn't enough breakup, but if you really wanted to push it, yeah, definitely adding more breakup in a silhouette to give it that bit more of interesting uh, uh, feature to it, because the silhouette is pretty much everything. When you look at silhouettes, it's just that is the you can tell what character is who based off just silhouettes alone. Um, and that's something that you have to kind of consider then in ZBrush, is like if there's parts that are sticking out or don't look right, make sure that you're looking at the silhouette and you're thinking, oh god, this is like too far out, too far in, whatever it is, but whatever looks good and makes sense. Um, so that's really just the whole process then when you're in ZBrush for doing cloth. Um, so I guess the next down is the pipeline of creating characters. Once we're happy with um, the high poly, is all the fun low poly and baking. And the best way to show this is, I guess, going into the low poly of this when it finally got finished. It was a bit of a slog getting it done, but thankfully with the that transfer attributes, I could use all of the clean geo that it gave me, and the only thing I really had to do then was obviously, you can see now I've added all these little bits and bobs which I kind of created here, and this is a great little trick if you have like a character and they have like little things coming out of them, little uh, features you want to show or whatever, and you don't want to just bake it down, because when you bake it down, then it's going to start crunching really bad when it's in the game. Uh, so you kind of make these little bits like these buckles and whatnot, and this is for a very like this would be considered a uh, hero character, I guess you call it. Where yeah, the try count on this is nearly 200,000 without the female base and stuff, and that's kind of where the direction with games now are kind of coming into. There's a lot more. It's not going to be infinite polygons. You can just throw out your characters, but it's going to be it's a lot more than it used to be anyway. And that was something that I was even taken back by because the previous game I was working on, the characters were only allowed 5,000 tries per character, and now they're up to the hundreds of thousands, which is pretty insane. But yeah, this is quite dense. This would be like the cinematic version of the character, and that's your main character of the game. And for stuff like that, you're thinking about where is the camera going to be looking in the game? What's going to be seen up close? And for stuff like that, these little buckles and these little trims, we call them, and this is a trim sheet, is essentially what's going to be like what sells it, as opposed to just baking all this detail down, which you can, but it's not going to look great as textures nip out, or if you're trying to make it look good up close. Um, anyway, sorry. Back to the low poly stage of things. And since we have all this clean geo now, I'll let you guys know another lesson that was important to learn when working with cloth on characters, and it was cutting into the folds. You may know this, you may not know this, but it is very, very crucial to cut into your folds. And when I say cut into your folds, it's looking at something like here, around this area, where I have all these folds, these large folds coming out, and you can see there's just like a bunch of cuts and triangles and all this crazy stuff going on. But believe me, there's a reason for it, and that is just again for the silhouette. Not just the silhouette, but also when you're baking down. Because if you're baking down, and let me get my little handy pen again, you have a polygon, right? And nope, that didn't work. A polygon. Why is it so big? Anyway, we'll just work with it. You have a polygon here, and you have a fold. Say this is representative of whatever is the surface of, say, this. And if you place just a flat polygon just across that, you're going to have a world of pain, because all of this area here is not going to get baked down. So when you cut into the folds, and whatever direction the fold is going, so that the polygon actually, it turns and you split the tries essentially, you're actually cutting it right here, then whatever direction it's going, and that's going to lay on top of the fold, and it's going to give you that baked down information, and it's also going to give you your silhouette, and it's just going to look great overall when you're done. So that is why when I say cut into your folds, it is very important. And this is exactly what's going on here. And it can look like a bit of a mess, but it's crucial when you're trying to make cloth. You can actually see here exactly what I'm talking about. It's called sawtoothing. I've actually forgotten this part. But yeah, you can see exactly what's happening with the polygons here. They're trying their best to make the shape of the folder go across and try and make it. But obviously you have these indents here where the polygon is trying to flow, but there's no support there to give it that extra flow. And I'm actually going to just put exactly the way I would in here. And you can see that the normal information kind of changes because it has supports now, and it can actually render a bit better. Here's probably a prime example of how bad it's gone. And if you start looking now, this one a bit, you can see now it's a bit more jagged, but it's got that support there where it's actually able to conform around the shape as opposed to just fall in on itself. this is probably a bad example, but also you can see what's happening here, but because it's instead of it trying to sawtooth and go in and out, you can see that it's kind of smoothed out and straight, and it's actually going and creating the folds, the shape of the fold, as opposed to just sawtoothing in and out and not knowing what to do. Um, so that's what's going to give you the best bake result and the best end result on your cloth and on your models. Really, it's not just for cloth; it's for most cases anyway. If you have something like this and it's the polygon is trying to its best to make a shape, it's gonna just fall flat and make that sawtooth and ruin your silhouette essentially that you work so hard on. um and you can particularly see it in something like here, these pipe folds, as they're called, along the poncho part of it. There's a lot going on here, but it's like the version I was given from doing the transfer attributes. It had all these great polygons, beautiful topology, but it was all jagged and sawtoothing all in and out of here because it was trying to wrap around this shape and it was going at an angle. But I needed it to be more straight, so that's why you can see now after some time cutting into these folds, it actually it creates that, it has that shape and it's staying there, and it's giving us the silhouette we want as opposed to just jagged edges going in and out. Um, and yeah, again, it's crucial for this kind of stuff. And I can't stress how important of a lesson that was to learn when working on characters and trying to elevate the characters I was working on. Um, because overall, it's just going to make everything a lot nicer. You can kind of see it here as well, also in um, the folds and just in the elbow and arm, or in the pit, or I don't know what you call it, the elbow pit, elbow. Anyway, um, moving on. Uh, so you've got all these retopoed and you got everything cut in, all your folds looking nice. Now it's the bane of most people's existence is the UVs, at least the tedious side of it. But I think UVs are probably one of my favorite parts because it's like a jigsaw puzzle, trying to figure out and try to get it as optimal as possible inside this little square. That's the way I try to think about it. It's just like a little puzzle that you're trying to figure out and try to see what shapes go where. And I'm not going to use this example anymore because this example, it was purely a portfolio piece and it's not uh, optimized UV wise for games. If I can actually just show you. Like it's okay, but it's also, this is taking up an entire UV space just for the pants and this and this and this, and it's just it's not good. It's not great. It's not going to be good in a game engine. Like it'll be fine, but it could be so much better. Um, if all this stuff was all packed into one UV space. So I'm going to move on to a different character that I worked on. I think it was back in 2019, and it's the Mandalorian character I worked on. And that was one of those first characters I worked on where I was there trying to really push the limits and try to make a full like fuck yeah character. So let me just get that open, and I'll go into the low poly version of that. So this is it. It's got this rig on it as well, but that doesn't matter. But you can just ignore that for now. And this is very much way more low poly than the previous character. The total try count for something like this was about 100,000 or just under 100,000 tries, which is still quite dense. But for again modern day stuff, it's you can get away with a lot. But I'm going to use this character as an example for how to do your UVs, because if you're ever doing UVs and you really want to learn how to UV, if you have a friend who is an environment artist, I would tell you learn from them, because environment artists again are wizards in their own right, especially with UVing stuff and trying to fit stuff optimally and try to do tricks to make things look like they're just super high density and making maximizing the most out of getting out of their textures. So if you ever have a friend that's an environment artist or you work with one in the future or are working with one, definitely try get some UV techniques out of them. And one of the important UV lessons I learned was to square off your UVs. And when I say square off your UVs, I mean like around the borders of them. You can see here, there's just like these perfectly straight, not all around the whole thing, but you can if you really want to. But where it makes sense, squaring off your UVs, and I'll just actually show the actual UV. Yeah, that makes more sense. And it's very much so for cloth. You might see stuff like squared off when it's something like, say, this pistol. Here we go. And you can see everything is just squared off, trying to fit and pack everything optimally inside of the UV space and trying to use mirrors to your advantage to just repeat and save space. Um, but it is also very true for cloth on characters and for pretty much everything with characters, even if you're doing bodies and whatnot as well. Just squaring off your UVs is so important because not only are you just saving uh, tons of space compared to if you were to just, for instance, do something like that where you unfold it and it's just like you're given the shape and cool, yeah, it's okay, but you got these kind of ridges and stuff here that's kind of uneven, and then you're trying to fit it inside, and you're like, oh god, I got to scale this down now if I want to fit it in. But no, you don't have to do that. You can just uh, undo, and you can just say, hey, let me just square this off. And again, we're back into that thing I was talking about. It's a jigsaw puzzle, and once you square things off, things start to fit a lot better than what they would be. You're essentially just trying to figure out piece by piece. Since the borders are mostly squared off, you're just fitting in the squares as much as you can, or where it makes the most sense. If you look at the armor here, even like, yeah, it's a bit more rigid as opposed to cloth, but it's squared off, and you can actually just uh, have everything in here and fit nicely, and you're going to maximize your textile density, and your textures are going to look great. And your tech artist is going to high five you, and everyone's going to love it, and the game will run great. So that's why it's important to square off your UVs, and it's there's no like great trick that you can do for something like that. It's quite literally like, oh my god, this is a rough example, but this is it unfolded, what the original was. But yeah, it's essentially, let me just go in here, orient, so it's a bit more straight. You're going into UVs and selecting them, just this line. Actually, you can even just for select texture borders and just get rid of all this noise. Um, and once you have something like this, you're just scaling it down, and so that's flat. So that's one part of it, and you're doing this rest for all of these as well. And it's a bit tedious, I know, but it will make your life so much easier in the long run when you're trying to fit all this stuff together. Um, that's kind of relaxing. Like you can just turn on like a podcast or listen to music or something like that, and not have to worry about UVs anymore because this is the solution you've been looking for. And it's a bit tedious, yes, I know, but it is a lot better than the other way. And that's just trying to UV wrap or unwrap everything and say, hey, here we go. That's all we need to do. And which is fine again for the portfolio piece. But when you're in a game studio and you're trying to get like the most out of your textures, and they're looking a bit crap for what they should be, then that's where it's going to be a whole host of other problems. Then you're going to save for yourself a lot of pain. So you have something like this, it's UV'd out. I'm actually going to put this at an angle as well, just ever so slightly, because if it's perfect, well, I can just do it perfectly straight on both sides. Because it's not that big, it's not that severe of an angle. So it's just say it's a natural square now. You have something like this at the end of it, and it's going to look atrocious. You actually go in here and look at it. It's all like jagged. Let me just get something that's a bit more readable. Yeah, it's not looking good. It's a bit all over the place. It's actually quite there, okay there. But if we're looking at the borders, you can see here it's all very squished. But the way to fix this now is selecting all of these. We're going to unfold, and we're going to do it along the U, and that's going to fix that part of it. I'm going to select here, unfold along the V. That's going to fix that part here. So now we have unwrapped, nice clean squares here, and we have a square another square here where we can just, fit in whatever we want. And if this was another square here, I'd get even more space out of the UVs. So that's why it's important to square out your UVs and manipulate them, because this shape here and this shape here, this is ugly and it is going to be a nightmare to try fit in, and the other one is going to actually be the same kind of texel density and squares, but it's going to look it's going to fit in a lot nicer, and you're going to get more texture space out of it. And that was another lesson that, again, it elevated uh, my work when I was trying to make characters and trying to make characters for games. Because the main thing, like with working in games, it's a team effort, and everything about it is a team effort from start to finish, from the pipeline. Your job is not only just to make lovely looking characters and whatnot, but your job is to make the next person's job as easy as possible when you're working down the pipeline. The concept artist is going to do that for you when they make a concept for you, when they have a turnaround and they have like different parts of the character that are pointed out, and you should keep an attention for it. And your job as a character artist is to make sure that the animation side of it is not going to be coming back to you, a week later and be like, why did you do it like this? I can't work with this. And then you're just going to be wasting time for everybody. Team's going to fall apart. The project's going to get canceled. No, it's not. But it's going to be a headache for other people down the line. And that's what you should be thinking about, is how can I make the other person's life a lot easier? And this so much isn't for animation, but that it's for like tech artists. It's going to make it a lot easier when they're, or even programmers, where they're looking at, memory leakages or anything like that, and they just want to have the game as optimized and try to get it as close to 60 frames as possible. It's the little things that add up like this. Maybe not for just this one character, but when you have like, say, 100 or 200 characters in the game and they all have, say, bad UVs or something like that, or the topology is not optimal, or little things like that, it's going to cause headaches for more people down the line. And your job is to not do that. It's to work as a team. What's best for the game? What's best for the character and for yourself as well? But also, yeah, overall, what's best for the team and the game. So yeah, if there's another little bit of advice I can give you, it's to work like that. Think about, how can I make the next person's life easier? And if you do that, you'll definitely get far in the industry for sure. We are coming up to quarter to 2. And I'm going to try to get through any questions you guys have. I'd love to keep going with this stuff as well, but we all know that making characters and stuff for games is not easy, and it's a long process. But hopefully maybe I'll be able to do something in the future where we get into like the texturing side of things, and even baking techniques and things to look out for and whatnot as well. But yeah, I'll go into the chat here now and see what kind of questions, or even to portfolios as well, is to have a look at what you guys have here. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I'm only just looking at everything in the chat now, but I guess we can start with some portfolio reviews, if that's okay with everybody. Let me just get it. Oh wow, this is great. So Emily Thomas, lovely to meet you. This is your portfolio. Looks great. Like straight away, as soon as I seen it, I was like, wow, these are really lovely, and a cat too. Great. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on tangents. I tend to do that, so I apologize. This is from Assassin's Creed. This is a lovely character. Yeah, you even got it rigged and all as well to pose. That's lovely. That's great. And it's exactly what like you should be doing, is like it, but also showing stuff like that off. If this was, I'm going to get to the bottom before I start speaking, so I can see everything that you're showing. When you're, this is great. This is lovely topology too. When you're showing off characters and you have them posed and whatnot, like this, if you pose it yourself, or even if there is like a Maya scene where you can have the skeleton and whatnot, even if it's super basic, show that in your portfolio, because for the love of God, it's like that what I said. If you're making life easier for the animator and you know some things about rigging, or even anything to do with animation, show that in your portfolio, because if you're a studio, you're going to look at that. Oh, they have some skills in rigging, or they have some skills in animation, or anything like that. That's going to be a big plus on your portfolio. Is always making the other person's life easier and have that skill set to show off as well. But yeah, this is really nice, really lovely topology, and UVs showing as well. Nice. One thing I always recommend, I see people do this, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's great that you're showing the textures and whatnot as well, and how you did them. Is to show the UVs as well. Like, you can export a UV snapshot from Maya and show what your UVs look like and how you lay them out. That might not be good, or whatever, but at least it's a lot more information you can get out of than seeing here, because it can be quite difficult, especially when you look at the normal map, what's where and what it's doing. But always, yeah, show your UVs as long with your textures if you are showing them, just so that uh, like that, if someone's trying to hire you, they can see what way you do them, what your thinking is. And nobody's expecting you to have perfect UVs, because I'm not like a UV snob or anything, but I'm just it's something that it's important for game studios to see. And when you are on the team, they can mold you to be able to, you know you can get in contact with that environment artist or whatever to help you elevate stuff like that. Because yeah, you only really learn that when you're in a studio or some setting like that, um, for UVs. But anyway, sorry, again, tangents. The high poly is great too. Yeah, it's a lovely amount of detail. Yeah, I guess for me, that's the only kind of main tips that I'd have for this. Like, the lighting is nice too. You could even when you're in, if this is rendered marmoset, yeah, is have a backdrop, which is just quite literally exactly what I had here. Um, Something like this, which is super simple to just set up. Throw that into the marmoset scene. That's going to really set it aside from something that looks like it's taking in a studio or set up like professionally rendered. And you can even just like what are they called? A sphere. That's the one. A sphere. Uh, yeah, scale up a sphere, and just go to mesh display, reverse it, and suddenly you have a dome you can work with, if you really wanted to. But this is a lot better, probably. But yeah, it's when you're inside of the scene, like in Marvelous, you don't have just like an infinite background. You have something that's looking a little bit more like it was shot in like a studio, like for photography or whatnot. Um, yeah, sorry, this is great. Really well done. Those are my tips on all as well. This is lovely too. This is a great portfolio. I'm gonna say sorry, but I'm looking at time too, and there's a lot of other people's as well. So lovely work, Emily. Right, Carlos, Carlos Romano. This is great too. You've got a mix of what looks like 2D and 3D as well, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, it's actually, yeah. You've got a concept that you've made yourself. That's actually awesome. That's great to see. So the concept here, like this, when you're presenting, if you're going for a 3D character artist, is it's important to show that in the image here, because like me, I thought, oh, maybe it's just a 2D concept, and that's all there is. But showing that the actual 3D version as your header in your portfolio is going to work out better, because when you're working at a studio, or if your art director is trying to find people and they're looking at portfolios day in day out, they're glancing at this stuff at best even, um, and it's they're trying to weed out whoever they can to hire. So if you're going for a 3D artist, make sure you're showing 3D art in your portfolio, because it is going to massively like not just help you, but make it easier for the hiring manager, whoever that might be, to be able to get a good glance at your work. But it's great. But if it's the same on the other end, if you're working on 2D and if you're working on characters, obviously then just show your 2D characters. Never really have a mix in there. And it's the same thing that goes for all portfolios, really. Is making sure that what you're showing is exactly what you want. And not everybody knows what they want. Like I still don't know what I want, but there's some great advice is to find a studio that you really love, what games they make that you really love, that you want to be a part of, and gear your portfolio towards that, because they're going to try find people that are going to make their lives easier and be able to make the characters that they want. So make sure that you're actually, catering to them. It's great to have um, whatever, like things that you're interested in, you love in your portfolio that you like making, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If you're looking for a job and you're in the industry, if you have like a mix of like stylized or realism and stuff, it's fine. It's totally great. But if you're like trying to find a job in a specific studio, uh, it's not going to be detrimental to you, but it's going to your chances of actually working in that studio, if your characters are geared towards what they make, whether it's realism, stylized, whatever, it's going to go up exponentially when they're looking for people to hire on to try to do their work. And if it's like you can always look at that as well with like kind of fan art too. If you're making fan art for certain characters in game and trying to match exactly the way that they did it, um, that's also going to benefit you when they're trying to hire new people, essentially. I hope that makes sense. By the way, Carlos, sorry, again, I'm going off in tangents, but yeah, this is great work as well. I really like this guy. This guy stands out a lot. It's great. Yeah, again, it kind of brings back to the that rendering as well. Like, you have like this. It could be a style choice as well, like to have something that's like fading into the darkness. But stuff like those backgrounds are great for just like rendering things out professionally looking. This is really nice. It's a cool concept as well. Like one thing is that I find is very important for especially getting into the industry and getting into certain studios is working from concepts. And it's great that you have here that you're actually making your own concepts, and that's brilliant. But for everyone else that isn't able to make their own concepts as well, is use go on to ArtStation, quite literally. Just go ArtStation and then just go character concepts, subject matter, no, medium, 2D. Just do that for fun. Um, yeah, and just go in and see what people are making that are concept artists, and they're shit hot at what they do, and find a concept that you really love. This is really cool, and try to recreate that. Obviously, ask the artist if you can do that. Don't just make it without telling them to. Just out of common courtesy, but make a concept or make something from a concept and show that and show how you broke it down, what decisions you made, why you made them. And studios, when they see that, they know that essentially you're doing the same thing as what's in a studio working on the pipeline. You're getting a concept from a concept artist. You're trying to recreate that into 3D as best as you can, and you're showing how you did it. And that's why I always say to a lot of people that I've tried to help out with their portfolios and stuff is go on ArtStation. There's so many concepts out there, so many great ones, and 99% of the time, the people who make these concepts are more than happy for people to make them into 3D. It's like an honor. So yeah, definitely always try to work from a concept. Um, and fan art is great as well when it's like a character from a movie or a show or anything like that. But you're not going to get the same amount of response as if you were just taking like concepts as if it were you're in a game studio and trying to recreate them in 3D. Um, and that's just my 2 cents on that. I hope it makes sense. Again, I know we only have an hour here, but if there's any other questions that you guys have that I'm not able to get to or talk about, then please, send me a message. I'm happy to help where I can, when I can. I'm working Monday to Friday, like most of you as well. Like I'll try to get back to people as much as I can. Um, but yeah, other than that, if outside of here, the door's open. um, let me try to get back to other people's stuff now. Um, so looking for I'll just get onto this final portfolio, and I'm sorry if there's lots in here, but again, yeah, message me privately if I haven't gotten to you, um, and I'll do my best to try to get to everyone and try help out where I can. This is a gorgeous portfolio. This is great. Wow, Miguel, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, but wow, this is lovely work. You're saying that you're still looking for work. Um, this is a strong portfolio, I consider. There's nothing here that is like the weakest link. And when I say that, it's like I hate the term that you're only as good as like your worst piece, which is bullshit. But having like weaker pieces in your portfolio is going to do more harm for you in the long term than anything, because if you have like one weak link in your portfolio or something that you're not quite proud of that you have there that's been there for a long time, but you just don't want to get rid of it, um, get rid of it because it's showing hiring managers who will look at it and think, "Oh, that's not that good. Why is it there?" It makes them think you don't know what good art is, but that's not the case. You worked hard on it and you don't want to get rid of it. But they're not looking at it like that. Anyway, again, tangents. I'm sorry. This is a great portfolio. And when I say it doesn't have any weak links. It doesn't. Everything here stands out. There's all strong pieces. This is exactly what you should be showing when you're showing your portfolio and showing off your work. This stands out particularly. It's really nice. Nice mix of like, I guess, is it hand painting and uh, stylized? Yeah, this is great. Really nice topology and topology in all the right, nice even quads in the face. Yeah, I'd say if you were rigging this, if you were rigging the face, I'm not saying that you should or have this. It's always obviously important to keep in mind for animators when they're rigging faces to have the edge loops in the right places. This is mostly there. Like there would be an extra loop that would go right around the top of the nose down to the chin and stuff. But that's stuff like, if you wanted to do that, but it doesn't have to be. This is lovely. Yeah, we have nice here with everything. I would it does okay, so it doesn't appear that the lower half of the body is created, so that's totally fine. I was going to say if there was to show it, but it might not be the case here. But yeah, the rendering's really nice. I like this little thing. Um, One thing I will say as well is when you have these like videos that you have in the ArtStation now and they're built in, they are so much better than YouTube videos or whatnot if you're trying to post like your work, because then that's an extra click that somebody has to go in and look at. Just make the video and upload it like this, where it's like a turntable or something like that, or just something that's in a loop is great because they're able to actually get to see it and not have to do any extra clicks or anything like that. Um, it's great, nice close-up shots as well. I like what's going on here. Um, you were mentioning there what should be your next project. Maybe not your cup of tea since it's stylized, but no, it's a great portfolio for stylized. Like and again, it's like what I was saying there is gearing to your portfolio towards what kind of studios you want to work at, and what kind of characters. Like I don't know how many characters in here are from a concept, but if they are, please. Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, they are from a concept. That's great that you have it like here, and it's linked to the artist version of it. Exactly like that is what you should be doing. Um, you can get this kind of little box here by copying pasting this link into the description of when you're making these kind of things, and it will show up, which is great. You're actually like showing the original artist and how you broke it down. And let me just open this up here. Like this is done this could have been taken whatever way, and you very much put your own twist on it as well, um, which is great. You're messing with uh, hair and whatnot here as well, which is really nice. And hair is very difficult. My own feedback would obviously be that the hair is very tricky to do, um, but you definitely benefit with breaking up the hair in a layered system of you have your base, your very thick hair, which I can see you have it out on the outside here, but you can see that it's kind of turned into more card And if you have these more of these strands as opposed to one of these on top of it, it's really gonna sell it, because then you kind of get these situations where they're thick pieces of hair, and then you can kind of see the cards, and the illusion kind of falls apart then. But if you have more of these, like if you break it down to the thick as at the very bottom of closest to the scalp, and you start moving up to thinner and thinner and thinner hair, it's going to make it look like it's this lovely, voluptuous, thick head of hair, as opposed to more card-like. That's my only feedback for stuff like this, and it's the only kind of thing I can see really that's wrong, because I really like everything else that you're doing here. It's really nice topology and whatnot too. Um, we are out of time. Okay, I am sorry for taking up extra time, but yeah, this is all I can do for the moment. I hope I was able to be of any kind of help to you guys um, trying to get in the industry, or trying to learn more, or trying to do anything else. Um, and yeah, I hope you all have a great Saturday and the rest of the weekend.